We're just going to spend a few minutes. I'll just ask my panelists to come up here, and we'll get sorted. I've got to say, doesn't Professor Brandenburger have the second best accent in this room? It's just, I love listening to it. Ah, yes, the name tags.
Oh, thank you.
James. So it's my pleasure to basically moderate this roundtable on innovation and entrepreneurship, which is a subject which is incredibly important, both for us at NYU Stern, for America, and also for China at the moment. And so I'd like to introduce my two panelists here, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves in a little bit more detail. But very pleased to have James and Chen with us, and I'll just ask you briefly to introduce yourselves and give the audience a little bit of background on the companies that you founded. Starting with you, James.
Okay. I'm the chairman and CEO of Ctrip.com. I founded the company in 1999. Ctrip is basically sort of Expedia in China. It provides just hotels, air tickets, and packages, online bookings, now mobile bookings. And we're currently the leading player in the space, and we were listed on NASDAQ in 2003. And a little bit unusual is that actually I sort of semi-retired and left the company. Resigned from the CEO
James,
post
what does
in
semi-retirement
2006.
actually mean? What does semi-retirement mean?
I've
always been curious of this because I aspire to be semi-retired.
Yeah, so I was 35-year-old, so I wouldn't call myself retired. And Ctrip was doing, great. I was looking for new challenges, so spent 5 years at Stanford and managed to get a PhD in economics in 2011. I'm back. So starting this year, actually, I'm back to be the CEO of Ctrip, and now that's why I call it semi-retired. So retired just for a period, and I'm working very hard now.
So a PhD at Stanford, was it?
Yes.
We won't hold that against you, but I want to come back to Stanford because I do want your take on Silicon Valley and what you think the magic is down there in terms of entrepreneurship. Because, I started working in Silicon Valley when I first came to America, and they were calling it the Renaissance, the Florence of the new Renaissance. I mean, this is how excited I was to be in Silicon Valley. The Florence of the new Renaissance? But then when I got there, it was like one giant car park. It's like, you can't see any innovation actually happening there. So anyway, we'll come back to that subject, but because I'm mystified by it. But Chen, lovely to thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to give us a bit of background on the company you founded.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's an honor to be here. I'm Chen Yang, and I was born and raised in Beijing until I went to the States for education, higher education. I was trained as a banker. I worked in fixed income, currencies and commodities for several years before obtaining my MBA. But after that, since I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, I started a company with a few partners. What my company does is it's called Redfields Partners. We've got a few different lines of business, but the most important one at this juncture is our commodities trading business. We're in the physical commodities trading business. I think many of you here are familiar with trading, but probably on the paper trading side. What we do is we physically go buy the raw material, sometimes with a wad of cash, and physically deliver them in China or other markets that we're in. and we service our clients on all different fronts. One unique aspect of what we do is instead of trading between developed markets and emerging markets, we're a pure emerging market firm. We trade between China, India, and the rest of the world. We have headquarters in Beijing and Hyderabad in India. So that's a brief intro.
Wonderful. And you also studied in America, Chen, right? Yes. And also INSEAD in France. Okay, fantastic. Actually, let's kick the discussion off there because I want to get to how you guys were inspired to be entrepreneurs. So given that you've both studied at institutions outside of China, maybe starting with you, Chen, you did an MBA at INSEAD. Now, was entrepreneurship a feature of that MBA? Did you get inspired in entrepreneurship and innovation while studying? And the reason I ask is I think the educational journey for a lot of people is a point of transition. It's about them figuring out really what they want to do. And was that a point of transition for you?
You know, thank you for that question. INSEAD was definitely a point of transition for me, but it was not the place where I wanted to become an entrepreneur. The entrepreneurial spirit ran in my family, but my grandparents on both sides, they left their respectful homelands and started various careers. My parents' generation, they were the first generation after 1979 Deng Xiaoping's reform and open policy. They went through permutations and combinations of entrepreneurship, and so they've always inspired me to do something on my own and not be afraid of failure. So I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. But in fact, at INSEAD, one of my I specialized in finance and entrepreneurship. I guess INSEAD, I have to say, has a pretty good entrepreneurship.
Well, that's interesting because a lot of people would consider that an oxymoron, wouldn't they? Finance and entrepreneurship. Don't you think?
I have to object to that. Because, in fact, by way of background, I was trained by two fantastic American financial institutions. I worked with Bank of America and Citigroup. So, when I first started in Charlotte, North Carolina, on a trading floor for 400, I was the only Asian girl sitting in the middle of all white male. But it was a really good training process, and then later on moved to Hong Kong with them, and I went to Singapore with Citi. So, I was trained by these fantastic institutions to learn about how to capture arbitrage, how to evaluate things, and how to identify opportunities and really grab it when we see it. So, and also service the clients well. So that's what I do every day now. Even though we don't sit in grade A office most of the time, I literally have to roll up my sleeves and step into mud and look at the quality of the chili that I'm buying. But we're also in the business of capturing arbitrage.
Fantastic. So James, what inspired you to become an entrepreneur, start a business?
Yeah, so actually before I started Citra, I was an engineer at Silicon Valley, at Oracle. And by 1997, 1999, actually there's a lot of entrepreneurship because of the internet going on in Silicon Valley. And I thought, well, what happens in the US?
Sorry, I asked James before, just quickly outside, I said, I was expecting some inspirational story. He said, there was just 3 friends and they kind of dragged me into it. Is this what happened?
Yeah, just everybody starting companies in Silicon Valley at that moment. So you doesn't take a lot of risk taking to be an entrepreneur.
In Silicon Valley.
In Silicon Valley.
Right.
But I was thinking a little different. I think, well, what happened in the Silicon Valley would happen in China very soon. And China, given the economy is growing much faster than the US economy, there will be more opportunities. So actually, I was one of the first few people that came back to China around that period, like around 97, 98. And after a year or two, for sure, there's a huge number of entrepreneurs. Most of the internet companies were created around that time period. So with a few partners, it's actually not much of a very tough decision to start this company.
Well, let's use that as a jumping off point to talk about sort of what culture you need to basically create to encourage entrepreneurship. So obviously, you know, Silicon Valley is held up, it's esteemed throughout the world as like the culture for entrepreneurship. Now, what's the magic of Silicon Valley that you see happening there? And use that as a point of contrast between what you see happening in Silicon Valley and what's happening here in China.
Yeah, actually, this is one of the areas of my research while I was at Stanford. Actually, that's what all the economists, not all the economists, most of the economists, even the political leaders care about what makes a good environment for entrepreneurship. I think particularly in Silicon Valley, you have a conglomerates of talents, and conglomerates of small companies, fast-growing companies, and not just fast-growing, but a lot of turnover between companies. Companies become very successful, companies fail. But you have a group of them, and the engineers can take a lot of risks joining these companies and not worrying about these companies fail and not be able to find different jobs because there are a lot more companies starting up. And that's pretty unique about Silicon Valley. I don't think there's nowhere else in the world at that point yet. The second ingredient, of course, you need to be at the forefront of the technology transition or technology revolution. Of course, Silicon Valley was leading the forefront of internet revolution. For China, it's actually, you have these two also, but a slightly different angle. First of all, China has a large pool of human resource. If you look at the number of college grads, PhDs, the engineers, China is probably already exceed the US level. The second, China also at the forefront many new technology. In the past, not so much of the frontier technology, but just the adoption of advanced technology to replace what China's in the past backward technologies. That's a lot of opportunities. But also in the future, I think the next 10 or 20 years, China will be actually getting to the forefront of many new technologies. So there will be even more opportunities. For example, the mobile technology, China has probably more mobile users than the United States, a lot more, actually more mobile e-commerce transactions than the United States. So there will be a lot more new opportunities, even at the forefront of the technology.
I mean, China has a pretty explicit innovation agenda, don't they? I mean, they're pouring a ton of money towards sort of national technology and engineering initiatives. Are you both seeing that? Are you seeing the result of that?
Yeah, China, the government certainly is rich and is putting a lot of money into certain industries. But compare the money being put in by the private industry or by the kind of people, the R&D people hired by private companies, that's still not a big factor. So most of the innovation and entrepreneurs is still driven by private companies or venture capitals. Because some of the venture capitals were actually provided by the government, but most of them still private money.
Chen, what's been your experience as being an entrepreneur in China, and how do you think China could basically help to, or put policies in place to encourage more innovative activity, entrepreneurship activity?
Sure. I guess I'll start with an observation. When you ask what encourages entrepreneurship, I guess business people get into business mostly because there's supply and demand. And because there's a need, so they fulfill that need. And some of the best business people that I've often learned from, they have this drive in them, and the culture encourages that, right? Chinese people, Jewish people, Indian people, a lot of people, they're used to this entrepreneurial culture, so that's ingrained in them. But also, I think the global market is a different place. That's what I'd like to stress on today, because I believe the global market has transformed so much that we live in a very big place, but a very small place. And we're all constantly communicating with various people that are completely different from us. And the speed and efficiency of transaction it's so much greater. So that in and out of itself encourages entrepreneurship. It encourages, I guess, leapfrogging in our thinking, in creativity. So that's different. And what's China doing to encourage entrepreneurship or innovation? Well, coming from a very traditional raw form of trading, the type of business that I'm in has been in place of thousands, if not longer than that, many years. But what I'm seeing is, either the government or private sector, business people and policymakers together, they're making China a better place in doing business. For instance, I was just having a fantastic discussion with one of our colleagues here in the fruit trading business. Fruits are very perishable. If you don't have an efficient cold chain, they would stop being valuable. So China has built cold chain, and many entrepreneurs, they've actually captured opportunities in how to perfect this process. So that's an example.
Okay. Let's get on to a couple of perceptions about China and innovation and entrepreneurship. And they might be misconceptions. I'm not sure. I'm going to play the role of the outsider here. But as soon as you speak to anyone about China and innovation and entrepreneurship, the first thing that comes up is, well, China's very good at fast following. So copying innovations and ideas that have happened somewhere else and executing them quickly and implementing. Where do you stand on this? Is this true? Is this the way forward for China and entrepreneurship and innovation? Or do you think actually that is a misconception and China is coming up with a lot more fresh ideas and original ideas than perhaps people perceive? James?
Well, that's not very surprising when you still have a lot of things that you can just learn or copy or just, do a little bit of localization to make it work, then most people would just do it. That's just a natural thing to do at this stage of development. But and going forward, I think China still probably at most have 10 years of learning it can do. And after that, in order to reach a point, in order to learn pretty much what's out there, and it needs to compete with the rest of the world on the best technology, on the frontier technologies. And China probably can do that. Going forward, China, in certain industries, China already at this stage. For example, when I say like the mobile technology or e-commerce, China, some of the companies, I know their technology, like even us, is already at not very far from the best in the world. And the things we come up with has to be the best in the world. The engineers we hire has to be best in the world. And China can certainly, I think China in the future can definitely, you can see some true innovations going forward. And partly because China has such a huge market, and the best companies can definitely afford to hire the best talents, even from Silicon Valley. That's what we do now, actually. In a few years back, we are happy with our own level of just learning, and we pretty much hire most locally. But these days, we can actually hire away a lot of people from Silicon Valley, Chinese nationals, and they bring back the best technology. I think in a few years, in a lot of areas, actually, we can be at the forefront of the world. And then I think you will see more and more true innovations coming from China.
Chen?
Sure. I'd like to echo what James said just now, but also I think another follow-on on what I was saying, the world is a different place. You can generate everything from your own resources, but to obtain something from what others have is also important. It doesn't necessarily have to be copycatting, but outbound investment is something that China is doing more and more so. Initially, it was just in resources and materials, but currently, I think the government is even encouraging more outbound investment in knowledge and services and things like that. So they're trying to capture the higher value in trying to learn and invest in and becoming shareholders of something of higher quality. So that I believe is important as well.
Mm-hmm. Another perception that people have is that failure in China is frowned upon, and this seems to be a cultural barrier to people thinking innovatively and creatively. And we talked about Silicon Valley, where you were saying, hey, everyone's starting up businesses there, and if it fails, it's no problem. You just go on and do the next. There's no stigma attached to failure in Silicon Valley. And Chen, you said your parents encouraged you to basically, fail and be comfortable with it. Is this a cultural barrier in China? And so it seems to be a fundamental issue that needs to be overcome in order for, innovation and entrepreneurship to really take hold here.
Sure, I'll take a stab at this. I guess in my mind, with all the Chinese families that I see, there is definitely a juxtaposition of this, on one hand, very much, the traditional feudalistic kind of, you must get good grades, and then you must get into good universities, then get a good job within the government, then you can be successful. You must not alter from, any of this past. But then on the other hand, we also have a lot of very interesting entrepreneurs. They sometimes, over the past 30 years since Reform and Open, so many things have happened. Over the past 100 years, so many more things have happened in this country. There's really no right way of doing anything. And anybody would have a story in their families where, they've had people going through ups and downs. And to say there's only one right way to be successful, I don't think that's the culture here, actually.
Mm-hmm. James?
I think this is really a misconception. If you look at the data, China, in terms of entrepreneurship, in all kinds of measurement, is actually way ahead of other countries. Even just taking out the fact that China's economy is growing so fast, Japan, Korea, when they went through the same kind of a development stage, also fast growing, and actually they didn't have as many as entrepreneurs or new companies coming up in China. So Chinese actually is more entrepreneurial by all kinds of measurement. And also, in the back of that is actually Chinese government, even though you said that they put a lot of money into certain industry, but that's just the recent event, and that money is still a small, considered overall picture. But Chinese government still has not loosened the control of many key industries, for example, telecom, financial industry, entertainment industries. So just the manufacturing and high-tech industries where Chinese entrepreneurs can really make can really do something. There's already we see so many entrepreneurships. So in the future, if Chinese economy continue to grow and the government start to loosen up some of the restrictions on these industries, you will see probably even more opportunities for entrepreneurs going forward.
And what about failure in China and compared to your experience in Silicon Valley? How is it perceived here?
Well, of course, Silicon Valley is more of a IT or technology-driven. In China, you see entrepreneurship everywhere, especially in the last few years, because all the industries, except the few ones that I just mentioned, are still controlled by the government. There's just a lot more opportunities in many industries. So actually, it's a very, very attractive environment for entrepreneurship in all industries.
Right. Well, another perception I picked up on, and I hear a lot talking to people about innovation entrepreneurship in China, is that young people, it's like their third or fourth choice in what they want to do. So it's government first, then I'll go and work for a corporation if I can't get into government, and then maybe I'll do a startup or I'll become an entrepreneur if I can't get a job in a corporation or with the government. But it seems low on the pecking order of young people coming through
Well, I think one difference is that, actually this is just the key difference between the US and the rest of the world. It's only the US that you see a group of dropouts, college dropouts, 20-year-old, who are very successful. That's just a factor because the US is more IT driven. In most of the industries, what I witness is it's not a 20-year-old most, so it's actually a 30-year-old. If you look at data, most countries, the 30-year-olds are the most entrepreneurial. So I think actually it's perfectly natural for college graduates to go into big companies, go into fast-growing companies to get a few more years of experience and become entrepreneurs. And the government certainly is a very attractive place to work with because just the government is rich. But so the government, what's unique about China is the government is ranked a little bit higher than some of the other companies. But I think by my experience, my people, our people at C-Trip in this, many people in this IT industry, they tend to be very entrepreneurial when they get to like 30 or 26 to 35-year-old range. And that's actually, a lot of people come to me, even though you have a great company, C-Trip's a great company, but I'm already 30, so I want to try something, otherwise I will regret for the rest of it. I heard that a lot. So so it's just a little different from the US. US, you have this unique phenomenon of dropouts, college graduates.
Chen?
Right. I have to say that I think most people, there are certain things they must fulfill in their lives before they can afford to make a mistake. Even if we say, yes, we're not afraid of making mistakes. But for a lot of the younger people in China, this problem with housing, right? Yeah. They have to be able to afford a house so that they can get married. Otherwise, nobody wants to marry them. So this is a very important thing. But the government is now helping, I guess, in providing affordable housing and whatnot. And around the people that I know, most people have to go through a certain stage in life, very similar to my own experience, to first establish ourselves in whatever we've been doing, and then have a foundation. Or learn from others, or learn from our own mistakes, and then start something else. There are those who are very smart and intelligent and lucky, who can start right away as an entrepreneur. But there are also others who must go through a certain stage. Just one thing I'd like to add, in addition to starting companies, we see innovation and entrepreneurship from people who are working with us as well. They don't necessarily have to all be leaders. They don't have to all be, the star that starts the next big company. But a lot of the problem solving are very creative. My team, I'm very proud of my team for being innovative and creative every day.
Okay. Well, actually, this is interesting, and I'm going to open up to the audience in a moment, but let's talk about leadership in terms of, you're both leaders now, you've founded companies, and your job now is really to be a conductor, really. You're not doing a lot of the innovation or entrepreneurship yourself, but you're inspiring others to be able to do that. So how do you encourage others to think creatively and innovatively in your own businesses? James?
Yeah, for companies like us in this very dynamic industry, innovation is actually the key. So we try to encourage people to think creatively, and we reward them handsomely. So we try to create project-based, so that if they create a new technology and really benefit our company, we'll reward them. And some of we try to do also entrepreneurship as well. And so if somebody has a great idea and wants to start something on their own, we say, okay, maybe you just starting a company as a C-Trip subsidiary, and we will invest in you, or you take some shares as a reward for that company. But there's a limit of existing companies can do. Some of the really game-changing technologies sometimes has to come from new companies. So you see, if we look at data, most of the patents were actually created not by new companies, but created by old existing companies. But if you look at some of the best technology, really game-changing technology were created by these very small new companies.
Small new companies, right. Jen?
One of the best quotes I've heard on leadership is from my alum from Wellesley College, who is a female astronaut from America. Her name is Pamela Melroy. She said that true leadership is to love your team for whoever they are and whatever they are. And identify their pros and cons and how they can work with each other. So I think being open-minded is very important, and that's the culture we try to create in our small but very global company. We have approximately 50 guys in China and 60 to 70 people in India. And for everybody to work together properly, especially with all the stigma between Chinese and Indians, we try to encourage open mind, and so that they can like each other, they can appreciate each other, joke around, and work well.
Now, is there anything you actually do to facilitate that? Do you hold off-sites? Do you get these people together and mixing in different ways on a regular basis?
Well, we have the wonderful application, software called Skype. So we can all see each other over the internet. And there's another wonderful application called WeChat. So now all of our Indian guys are using WeChat. In fact, for this International League of Cricket, in between the sessions, they actually have WeChat advertising. So they're not targeting the US market, they're not targeting the European market, they're targeting Indians. And so all of our colleagues use WeChat. We are on the walkie-talkie all day long. We see each other's faces with FaceTime, and so they know each other. They're not scared to speak to their colleagues. That's what we do.
Are there any questions from the audience? Things that people would like to ask about innovation entrepreneurship in China? And I think we have some microphones coming around, or I can repeat the question. Yes. Yes, it's coming down now.
Hey, James. I'm in the human capital business. I read your book about, entrepreneurship and what's the impact of the, aging society to the entrepreneurship. What's the influence or impact and all that. And just for your information, one of the mega economic trend is China is one of the prominent, ever, aging population. So could you give us a little bit your thoughts on that? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. So on my research areas in Stanford, I look at the impact of aging, the demographics on entrepreneurship innovation. If you look at data, 30-year-old, the young people is really most entrepreneurial. So in an aging society, not only you have fewer young people, but these very few young people will not be as active, as dynamic, because they don't have a lot of room for growth, because there's a much larger group of older people that blocking their promotion. So the good example is like Japan, where the young people not having enough opportunities for promotion and become even less entrepreneurial. Of course, China is not reached at that point yet, because China is still relatively young, because this one-child policy, we can forecast in about 15, 20 years, China will have this aging problem where there will be fewer young people, a lot more older people, and that might actually be a very negative 15, 20 years from now for China's innovation and entrepreneurial dynamics.
Your book is called Too Many People in China. Is that correct?
Right. With a question mark.
With a question mark. Oh, okay.
Yeah. You only allow say certain things in the book. or raise a question, not a conclusion.
Thank you for the question. Other questions?
Hello? Yeah. What are the biggest challenges you have dealt with in your successful career entrepreneurship? Obviously, C-Trip is very well known. We consider your successful story. Particularly, I worked in the U.S. capital market, so I know a lot of public Chinese companies there. But I also know that in the past few years, the public Chinese companies have really dealt a lot of difficulties in the capital markets. So, you know, that's probably part of the challenges I'm talking about. But another aspect is, what would be the advices you would give to a new entrepreneur? Like, I started up my company 3 years ago, and obviously, you know, what are the advices you could give us so that we could be successful? Thank you. Oh, sorry, my name is Christy Xu. I'm NYU MBA 2001. Thank you.
Thank you. Chen, would you like to answer that? Oh, James.
Well, it's hard to give advice without knowing a lot about, actually, even you tell me a lot about your industry, I probably wouldn't be able to give you any advice because you really have to know your industry much better than your peers or than your competitors or than your colleagues to be able to be a successful entrepreneur. I think the environment in China is much more, I would say, challenging in a way. There's a lot more opportunities, as I said, for entrepreneurs in China compared to 5 years ago. Many, many more opportunities. But there are also a lot more talents competing for those opportunities. You know, back 10 years ago, there was just very few, like, foreign, Haikui, or coming back to China. And now, with this new technology, everybody knows what's happening in the world. There's a lot more talents trying to do the same thing. And so you really have to have the kind of industry domain knowledge and a deeper understanding than the rest of the world or the rest of your competitors to be successful. So that requires you to have certain kinds of experience, or if you don't have certain kinds of experience, to look for people to have certain kinds of experience to be really successful. That's all I can give to you.
I guess the biggest challenges we've faced as a boutique firm playing in niche markets in commodities trading is information. We're not trading the major commodities, so we don't have futures, we don't have indices, we don't have you know, the CBOT guiding us on prices. So relationships and information before you know, information before others know what's happening in the market is the key to our success. Our relationships in the market, our good friends who sometimes are our clients who actually feed us information. There's no such thing as insider trading so far in commodities, physical commodities, in the areas that we're doing. We are very much appreciative of all the friends that have helped us along the way. In the different markets we work in. Without the information, without the long-term relationships, we will not be able to survive.
And we've got to wrap up, but final question, really. I mean, so much of innovation and entrepreneurship, because there's so much noise out there and so much competition, and you mentioned understanding your competitors in the landscape better than anyone else. But how do you truly differentiate? How have you both differentiated your business from all the other competitors out there to, I mean, we often say the aim for innovation entrepreneurship is to be considered the only ones who do what you do. Not just the best of what you do, the only ones who do what you do. Do you feel like you've achieved that level of differentiation, or is that something you're still striving for?
Sure. Well, my alma mater for MBA is INSEAD, and we had two professors that came up with the Blue Ocean strategy.
Yeah. I haven't heard of that. How do you spell that?
And so we started our company being in blue ocean markets. We didn't want to compete in the rice market. We didn't
Actually,
want to.
can you? Some people may be. There might be one person in the room that's unfamiliar with this whole red blue ocean. Sorry, I'm just jealous of the success that book had. Do you want to quickly explain the concept?
Sure. In a few words, the blue ocean strategy basically says that instead of trying to be better and stronger and faster, why not look for the little corner that nobody else is playing in? So instead of fighting with all the sharks and turning the ocean red and with all the blood, why not go into a corner that nobody's competing with you? So we wanted to basically not compete head on with all the big boys, and so we identified some niche markets in agriculture commodities, and that's the area that we're functioning in these days.
Thank you. James, how did you differentiate?
Well, I think it's tough to find a blue ocean market in China. The definition of blue ocean is that if its market is small enough and you're quick enough, you can get some unique advantages before everybody can do it. But everybody don't bother to do it if it's not takes too much and the market's not big enough. The problem is in China is this. Any small market, any niche market is actually pretty big, and it's actually pretty profitable. And what I see is that
because of too many people in China?
Yeah, because too many people in China. So what I see that you usually have 2 or 3 times number of competitors in any given niche. So I mean, you have to, you have to be faster. I mean, there's no, you have to, sometimes you have to willing to take a big loss. So use this kind of strategy to as quickly as possible to capture the market or to attain certain unique advantages.
I mean, for your business, you often describe it as the Expedia .com of China. Right. Are you different from Expedia? Is there something that you're doing that other companies like that or Travelocity aren't doing?
Slightly different. We have more products. We have, for example, tours, outbound tours, like group tours to Europe, which is also a very fast-growing niche, a very big market.
That sounds pretty cool. Can you hook me up?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good.
And we're becoming more similar. In the beginning, we have a lot of call center operations, a lot of orders made through calls. Now we have more mobile. The difference is that we have probably a much higher penetration into the mobile market, so there were a lot more orders coming from mobiles, and some of this, and then these customers probably never went to the PC, so they just switched from calling us to just doing this mobile to make the transactions. So that's actually a kind of leapfrogging you commonly see in China. So that actually on the technology makes it a little different from Expedia.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so final word. What would you say to a young aspiring entrepreneur to inspire them to actually pursue that path of becoming an innovator and entrepreneur in China? Chen?
If there's something that you strongly believe in, it's never too late to start. And don't wait for a perfect moment. Just get something started right away. And you can even do it at spare time. And at some point, you might actually strike gold. So.
Wonderful. James?
Well, I think there's another way is just to find something you love and find something that you think will have very good growth opportunities in the next 10, 15 years. And you work with, you might not want to start companies right away after college, but you can start working in a very fast-growing or dynamic company, a place where you can learn a lot, and try to learn as much as you can. And at the point you think you're better than most people in your company, certainly better than your boss, then then it's about time you can start a company yourself. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I don't know where to go from there. I should say, actually, James, he looked into the room, because he turned up, he looked into the room and he said, oh, it's looking very formal in there. I thought this was a panel on entrepreneurship. But I want to thank you both for your time today. My name's Luke Williams. I'm the Executive Director for the Berkley Entrepreneurship Center for Innovation at NYU Stern. And as I said yesterday, we truly believe that innovation entrepreneurship is a critical skill for 21st century business and leadership. And regardless of if you want to go and do a startup in China or America, we think this is a mindset that every leader, no matter if you're in government or in a corporation, needs to have. So we're very passionate about entrepreneurship and innovation and making that a cornerstone of what an education impossible actually means. So we were thrilled for you both to join us today, such successful entrepreneurs in China, and it's been a fantastic discussion. So please thank James Liang and Chen Yang for their time today. Thank you. Now we're going to have a short break, so please enjoy the refreshments there, and then we're back with Professor Paul Romer, and you won't want to miss this one. Thank you all. Thank you, James. Thank you, Chen.